A few months ago, I was standing in a store, holding something I actually wanted and could easily afford. And the first heard myself think, "You don't need that, put it back." Except that sentence wasn't even in my own voice. It was my mother's voice, word for word, something she used to say to me as a kid. For a second I actually looked around, half expecting her to be standing right behind me. I put the item back without even really deciding to, almost on autopilot. And later that night I sat with that moment, because it genuinely bothered me. I hadn't made a decision. I had just replayed a script that wasn't mine. If that's ever happened to you, hearing a parent's voice come out of your own mouth about money, this video is for you. Because the first went looking into why this happens, and I found an actual framework for catching it and rewriting it. These inherited beliefs quietly shape everything from how much you save to whether you feel safe negotiating a raise to how you handle conflict about money in a relationship. Not therapy speak, not vague journaling prompts. An actual 4-question exercise I still use, and I'm going to walk you through it exactly. But first, here's why this happens to basically everyone, whether your childhood was rough or completely fine. There's a concept in financial psychology called money scripts. Researchers Brad Klontz and Ted Klontz at Kansas State coined the term after studying how people relate to money. Their research actually sorts these scripts into a few broad categories, things like money avoidance, money worship, money status, and money vigilance. Money avoidance looks like believing money is bad or corrupting, so you avoid dealing with it altogether. Money worship looks like believing more money will finally fix how you feel, no matter how much you already have. Money status ties your entire self-worth to what you own or how much you make. Money vigilance is the anxious, guarded relationship most people associate with frugal households, always bracing for the worst. A money script is basically a belief about money that you picked up so early you never actually chose it. You absorbed it the same way you absorbed your first language before you had the ability to question it. Maybe it was, money causes fights if your parents argued about bills. Maybe it was, we don't talk about money, it's rude, if that topic was avoided at your dinner table. Maybe it was, spending on yourself is selfish if a parent always put their own needs last. None of these were ever said to you as a formal lesson. You just watched it happen over and over, and your brain quietly filed it away as fact. And here's the part that makes it tricky. These beliefs made complete sense in your parents' specific circumstances. Maybe your parents grew up with real scarcity or lived through a specific financial crisis. Their caution wasn't irrational, it was earned. But you inherited the belief without inheriting the exact circumstances that created it. So the script keeps running, even in a completely different financial reality. That's the whole trap. It's not that the belief is stupid, it's that it's outdated for your current life and running quietly in the background anyway. Okay, so here's the exact process I used to actually catch and rewrite one of mine. Step 1. Catch the trigger. For me, it was that exact moment in the store, hearing a familiar sentence in a familiar voice. For you, it might show up as guilt after a completely reasonable purchase. It might show up as anxiety every time you check your bank balance, even when the balance is fine. It might show up as discomfort talking about salary with a friend. Whatever the trigger is, the goal in step 1 is just to notice it without judging it yet. You're not trying to fix anything at this stage, you're just becoming a quiet observer of your own reaction. Step 2. Trace it back. Ask yourself one specific question. Where do I first remember hearing or feeling this? Not a vague memory, an actual specific moment, if you can find one. For me, it was countless nights watching my mom put things back at checkout, sighing, saying we don't need that. I wasn't taught that sentence directly, I absorbed it by watching it happen dozens of times. Step 3. Test it against your actual current reality. Ask, is this belief true for me right now, today, with my actual income and my actual situation? Not, was it true for my parents 20 years ago? Is it true for me, in this specific moment? For me, the honest answer was no. That gap between what used to be true and what's actually true now is where almost all the useful work happens. I could genuinely afford the thing I put back. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't the same situation my mom was in. Step 4. Write a replacement belief in one clear sentence. Not a vague affirmation, an actual specific statement that reflects your real current situation. Mine became, I can spend on things I value without it meaning I'm being irresponsible. That's it. 4 steps. Notice, trace, test, replace. This matters just as much in relationships, by the way. A lot of money arguments between partners aren't really about the specific purchase at all. They're two different inherited scripts colliding, one person raised to save every dollar, the other raised to believe money is meant to be enjoyed. Neither script is wrong exactly. They're just two different inherited defaults meeting each other for the first time as adults. Here's the actual script I use now, word for word, when I catch one of these old scripts firing. I say to myself, this reaction is familiar. Where does it come from? I say, this belief may have made sense once, but let me check if it's true right now. I say, based on my actual situation today, is this decision actually reasonable? And if the answer is yes, I say, I'm allowed to update the rule. That last line matters more than it sounds like it should. Because a lot of people know intellectually that an old belief doesn't apply anymore, but they still feel like they need permission to actually act differently. Saying it out loud, even just in your head, gives you that permission. Now, what actually changed for me after doing this a few times? It wasn't dramatic. I didn't suddenly become a big spender. But the first stopped feeling low-grade guilt over completely reasonable purchases. I started being able to talk about money with my partner without that tight, anxious feeling in my chest. And the first noticed the trigger moments happening less often over time, not because I was suppressing them, but because I'd actually addressed the belief underneath. I also started noticing the same pattern showing up in completely different areas, not just shopping. The way I avoided checking my accounts, the way I underpriced my own work, even the way I flinched at salary conversations, all traced back to similar inherited scripts. Once you learn to spot one, you start noticing the shape of it everywhere. Here's what I'd tell you if you're about to try this yourself. First mistake to avoid. This is not about blaming your parents. Most parents pass down money scripts without any idea they're doing it because their own parents did the same thing to them. This exercise is about awareness, not blame, so don't turn it into a grievance session. Second mistake, don't assume this only applies to scarcity beliefs. Some people inherit the opposite pattern, like money will always work out, don't worry about it, which can lead to real avoidance and denial around actual financial problems. I've talked to people who inherited a script like everything works out fine, don't look too closely, and it left them completely unprepared for a real financial setback later. The exercise works the same way either direction. Notice, trace, test, replace. Third mistake, don't expect one pass to fix it permanently. Old scripts tend to resurface, especially during stress, so this is more like a tool you keep in your pocket than a one-time fix. Fourth mistake, don't skip step 2, tracing it back. It's tempting to jump straight from noticing a feeling to just deciding to think differently. But without tracing where it came from, the new belief doesn't stick nearly as well because you're just arguing with a feeling instead of actually understanding it. So here's your homework, if you want it. Think of 3 phrases about money you heard repeated growing up. Just write them down as they come to you. Pick the one that still shows up for you the most today. Run it through the 4 steps. Notice, trace, test, replace. You can even do this one together with a partner, comparing what you each grew up hearing. It tends to explain a lot of arguments that never actually made sense before. You don't need to solve your entire financial psychology in one sitting. Just find one script and write one new sentence to replace it. That's genuinely enough to start. And if it turns out your parents actually had a healthy relationship with money, that's worth noticing too. Because you can intentionally keep those scripts running instead of just assuming they'll stick around on their own. If this helped you notice a pattern in your own head, that's exactly what this channel is here for. Every week I break down the psychology behind our money and career habits without the judgment. Subscribe if you want more of this. And if you're comfortable sharing, drop a comment with one money phrase you grew up hearing. I genuinely like to see how many of us heard the exact same lines. See you in the next one.